Huh? They heard me say it. I said that. If I was on there, I said that.
Turn around, please. You did not.
Shekinah, you stopped them and I said the same. You asked me, do you think I'm happier that you asked me the question and I answered it? So why would you sit there and say that?
Because I am.
But why would you sit there and say that I ain't say that?
You did.
I said she's happy. Yes, I did.
It wasn't loud and clear.
Tell me.
Yeah?
Tell me what's going on out there. What's going on?
Atlanta didn't just wake up to a scandal, it woke up to the collapse of a dynasty. What started as whispers on social media exploded into the most public betrayal in hip-hop history. Headlines screamed T.I. exposed. Hashtags like Nut Tiny Breaks Silence and Nut DNA 4 Tiny trended overnight. And at the center of it all, Clifford T.I. Harris, once crowned the King of the South, and Tiny Harris, his wife of over a decade, now engulfed in a firestorm of infidelity, leaked audio and a DNA test that shook the internet. This wasn't just gossip. It was a cheating scandal that played out like a movie, except it was real, raw, devastating. And the twist? A name few expected, Shikina Anderson. The woman now tied to T.I. by more than just rumors, but by blood. The T.I. and Tiny drama hit harder than anyone imagined. The leaked medical records, grainy voice notes, and that infamous Instagram Live didn't just cause a stir. They set the internet on fire. Fans who grew up watching The Family Hustle couldn't believe what they were seeing. A man once praised for his hustle and loyalty, now accused of betraying his wife in the most public way possible. And this wasn't some side chick story brushed under the rug. This was Tiny Harris demanding a DNA test, crying in front of cameras, screaming in a courtroom, and watching her empire crumble alongside her marriage. This is the full story of how T.I.'s baby scandal went from rumor to viral destruction, and how Tiny Harris, through heartbreak and humiliation, became the face of survival. So buckle in, because the T.I. drama of 2025 wasn't just messy, it was history-making. It started with a whisper, then came the leak. Grainy audio, blurry screenshots, medical reports, private chats. One by one, they hit social media like Molotov cocktails. First Twitter, then TikTok, and finally every blog from Shade Room to TMZ. And the name attached to all of it, Shikina Anderson. She wasn't just some unknown. A longtime friend of the Harris circle, she'd been spotted at events, hanging out backstage, and even appearing in glimpses of T.I. and Tiny's reality show past. But now she was being called something else entirely, T.I.'s alleged new baby mama. At first, fans brushed it off. After all, the internet is full of fake stories and messy edits. But then came the voice recording, raspy, low, and unmistakably familiar. A man's voice, allegedly T.I.'s, whispering, "Don't worry, Shayna. If this comes out, I'll handle Tiny. Just trust me." Suddenly, this wasn't just a T.I. and Tiny drama headline. It was a full-blown betrayal playing out in public. The T.I. baby scandal became the top trending topic within hours. Every major outlet started digging. Fans who once defended him were now posting side-by-sides of the audio clip and his past interviews, comparing the tone, the cadence, the pause between words. And T.I. Silent Shikina Anderson? Silent Tiny? About to make noise that would change everything. But the biggest gut punch hadn't even landed yet. Tiny Harris didn't go online. She went on camera, tears running down her face, voice trembling, but with the fire of a woman who had reached her breaking point. She stood before the press and delivered 5 words that turned the internet upside down. "I want a DNA test." The world stopped. This wasn't some vague tweet or cryptic Instagram story. This was the wife, the queen of the Harris empire, saying publicly, "I deserve the truth." Suddenly, the rumors turned to reality. This wasn't T.I. and Tiny just having marital issues. This was a woman saying, "My husband might have fathered a child with someone I know, and I want receipts." The cheating scandal was no longer speculation. It was war. Support for Tiny Harris poured in immediately. Celebrities DM'd her. Fans trended, "Just Tiny breaks silence." A viral TikTok showed hundreds of women sharing their own tiny moment. The moment they realized their partner had betrayed them, and the world didn't believe them until they said it out loud. One woman's pain became a collective heartbreak, and behind the scenes, reports claimed T.I.'s team was scrambling. His PR manager was in emergency mode, and all scheduled appearances were cancelled. His Instagram went dark. No posts, no stories, no captions, just silence. And in this case, that silence was deafening. But Tiny wasn't done. She had just made the request. Now it was time for the world to watch the results. Once Tiny spoke, the floodgates opened. Outside courthouses, fans held signs reading "Justice for Tiny" and "DNA doesn't lie." On Twitter, hashtags exploded. More T.I. Shikina DNA. Mork cancel T.I. Shekinah exposed. T.I. Tiny divorce. And for the first time in years, people weren't cheering T.I. Harris. They were turning on him. The fall was fast and brutal. Sponsorships dropped. Labels issued vague statements about reviewing partnerships. Fans who once screamed his lyrics now posted videos burning his albums. Even longtime supporters couldn't spin this as just another celebrity rumor. Not with that DNA test pending and receipts pouring in daily. Shikina Anderson, meanwhile, was facing her own backlash. Death threats, protesters outside her home, Instagram comments calling her every name imaginable. In an emotional live stream, she sobbed. "He told me he loved me. He said he was leaving Tiny. Now I'm the one getting destroyed." But the public wasn't buying it. To them, she was the other woman, the one who broke up a family, the one who helped shatter the Harris empire. And the worst part, the DNA results hadn't even come out yet. The courthouse wasn't just packed, it was pulsing with energy. Fans, bloggers, paparazzi, everyone showed up like it was a red carpet event. But instead of a premiere, it was the implosion of a legacy. The headline outside read like a movie title: Tiny versus T.I. and Shikina Anderson, DNA and betrayal. Inside, the tension was unbearable. Tiny Harris sat with her lawyers, stone-faced but visibly shaken, tissues clenched in her fists. Shikina Anderson arrived heavily guarded, looking more like a defendant than a witness. But it was the entrance of T.I. that turned the room cold. Once the unshakable king of Atlanta, now reduced to a man cornered by truth. As the judge read the case title aloud, gasps rippled through the gallery. This wasn't just T.I. and Tiny drama anymore. It was betrayal carved into the court record. And then, the moment no one expected, the audio file played for the court. Grainy but clear, the voice echoed through the room. "Don't worry, Shayna. If this comes out, I'll handle Tiny. Just trust me." The room froze. Tiny's body visibly shook. She stood up, her voice cracking. "You destroyed me. You destroyed our family." Seconds later, she collapsed into her daughter's arms. The courtroom, the internet, the world, all held their breath. Everything came down to a single piece of paper. The courtroom fell silent as the clerk opened the envelope. You could hear every breath, every heartbeat in the room. And then, the words that shattered what was left of the Harris legacy. Clifford Harris is the biological father of Shikina Anderson's child. With 99.9% certainty, Tiny screamed, not cried, not gasped. She screamed like her soul had been cracked open. "Why, Clifford? Why would you do this to me? To our family?" She hit the floor. Her daughter cried beside her. Shikina broke down too, shouting, "I never wanted this. He promised me everything." It didn't matter. The room spiraled into chaos. Tiny hurled a water bottle at Shikina. Reporters scrambled. The judge slammed his gavel, but no one was listening. This wasn't just a T.I. baby scandal. It was the confirmation of a betrayal so deep it felt cinematic. The fallout was instant. News broke before the hearing even ended. Twitter exploded with DNA bombshell. T.I.'s name was no longer trending as a rapper. It was trending as a liar. The empire had officially collapsed. And the DNA results didn't just prove paternity. They exposed every lie that came before it. After the verdict, T.I. went dark. No statements, no denials, no apologies. Just silence, the kind that speaks louder than any defense. His Instagram wiped, no captions, no stories. No trace of a man who once shared every flex, every family photo, every king and queen post about Tiny. And the silence was damning, because while Tiny grieved in public, while Shikina sobbed on IG Live, T.I. hid. And people noticed. The media ran with headlines like T.I. goes ghost after DNA, fallout, and from King of the South to cancelled in 30 days. T.I.'s downfall had become the biggest story in hip-hop, and not for his music. Behind the scenes, insiders claimed sponsors pulled out of deals worth millions. Streaming numbers dipped. Even fellow rappers, once loyal collaborators, started distancing themselves. Tiny Harris, meanwhile, released a short but powerful statement. "I never thought I'd see the day my family name would be dragged like this, but I will rise. My kids will know the truth, and I will not stay silent." That single quote went viral. Memes crowned her the queen who survived. T.I., once the legend, was now the shadow, and the question on everyone's mind wasn't if he'd bounce back. It was how far he'd fall before he hit bottom. Just when people thought it couldn't get worse, it did. A new video surfaced, just days after the courtroom chaos. And this time, it wasn't leaked medical reports or court audio. It was T.I. himself, allegedly caught on a private video laughing with friends. No remorse, no regret. Just ego. He leaned back in his chair, smirking. Tiny ain't going nowhere. She can cry, she can sue, but she'll always need me. And then the line that detonated across the internet. Shekinah? Man, she's just another piece of the puzzle. Fans were floored. Even those still hoping for reconciliation couldn't defend him anymore. This wasn't just a mistake. It was mockery. That one clip flipped the narrative. T.I. wasn't just exposed as a man who cheated. He was now seen as a narcissist who mocked the very woman he betrayed. Social media went ballistic. Tweets called him a manipulator. TikToks dissected every frame of the leaked clip. Hashtags like "T.I. cancelled" and "Not My King" trended worldwide. T.I.'s baby scandal had already cost him credibility. Now this leak was destroying whatever public empathy he had left. It was no longer about whether he did it. It was about how little he seemed to care. A week later, it became official. Tiny Harris filed for divorce. The documents didn't just ask for separation. They demanded full custody of the children, half of T.I.'s empire, and financial compensation for emotional distress, repeated betrayal, and public humiliation. It was the moment fans had been bracing for, but still, it felt like the final nail in the coffin. Tabloids ran with headlines like, "Tiny ends it all, the Harris empire is over." TMZ showed her walking out of the courthouse in black shades, flanked by security, holding her children's hands. No smiles, just resolve. The legal motion included claims of long-term infidelity, manipulation, and gaslighting, and quoted T.I.'s own leaked audio and video as evidence. Tiny's statement hit harder than any lawsuit. "I stayed for the family. I stayed for love. But I'm leaving for my sanity and for my children." That one quote shattered hearts. People rallied around her. Protesters who once screamed "Justice for Tiny" now held signs that read, "Let her rebuild." A queen deserves peace. And T.I.? His house, once swarmed with fans and press, was now guarded by silence. No one showed up anymore, except delivery trucks removing luxury items piece by piece. The divorce wasn't just a legal ending. It was the emotional climax of a story millions had watched unfold in real time. With T.I. in freefall, the public did something unexpected. They crowned Tiny Harris as a queen rising from the ashes. She wasn't just the wife of a rapper anymore. She became a symbol of survival, strength, and silence breaking into power. Fans gathered outside her home, holding signs that said, "We love you, Tiny. You are not alone. Tell your story." Talk shows invited her to speak. Podcasts wanted her to open up. And behind the scenes, rumors swirled that a tell-all memoir was coming. A book that wouldn't just expose T.I.'s betrayal with Shikina, but years of secrets, lies, and hidden heartbreak. Everywhere she went, people cried for her. But not out of pity, out of respect, because Tiny didn't collapse. She stood back up, made her decision, and took back her voice. Her viral quote, "I will rise. I will fight. And I will make sure my children know the truth," became a rallying cry across social media. And for once, T.I.'s name was no longer leading the conversation. Tiny Harris was. One of the biggest questions online was simple. Why was no one in the industry saying anything? T.I. had collaborated with half of Atlanta. He was a fixture in hip-hop, reality TV, and business. So where were his friends? The producers? The collaborators? The peers who once praised him as the king of consistency? The silence was loud and calculated. Insiders began whispering about NDAs, loyalty clauses, and hush agreements buried in contracts. One source from a former production team even claimed T.I. had clauses for everyone. Even makeup artists had to sign NDAs. It wasn't just loyalty, it was fear. Fear of backlash. Fear of being blacklisted. Fear of being dragged into the drama that was consuming T.I. and Tiny's legacy like wildfire. One ex-crew member leaked a chilling text thread where a mutual contact warned, "Do not speak on Clifford right now. He has lawyers on speed dial." The T.I. controversy of 2025 wasn't just personal. It exposed a culture of control, one where image was everything and silence was bought. Even those who wanted to speak up didn't, because they knew one thing: this wasn't just a scandal. It was a career killer. While T.I. hid and Tiny healed, Shikina Anderson's life unraveled in real time. Once just a background name in the Harris family orbit, she was now one of the most hated figures online. Comments under every post ranged from insults to death threats. Protesters even gathered outside her home, holding signs that said, "You destroyed a family." Homewrecker of the South, Shikina went live again, crying, broken and desperate. "I didn't destroy the family. He did. He told me he loved me. He said he was leaving Tiny." But the tears did nothing to slow the rage. People didn't see a victim. They saw someone who inserted herself into a marriage, then cried when the backlash came. And while T.I.'s baby scandal rocked the headlines, Shikina's name became the punchline. Meme pages mocked her. Influencers called her a clout chaser. Rumors swirled that she'd fled Atlanta and was planning to change her name completely just to escape the storm. One insider leaked a quote that stuck like glue. She thought she was going to be his queen. She ended up being the spark that burned the whole castle down. Whether that was fair or not didn't matter. The internet had made up its mind. Shikina was done. While Shikina faded into obscurity, T.I. was bleeding from every angle. Endorsements, gone. His label, silent. Streaming numbers, plummeting, and worst of all, his friends weren't picking up the phone. Multiple sources claimed that high-profile collaborators ghosted him, afraid that being associated with T.I. now meant being dragged into the most toxic scandal in hip-hop history. A Grammy-winning producer anonymously said, "You don't survive something like this. Not when the receipts are public." Even T.I. and Shikina Anderson's alleged private conversations were leaked. More screenshots. More whispers of promises he never intended to keep. In one message, he allegedly said, "I can fix this. I've been through worse." But this wasn't like the old rumors. This was a DNA-confirmed betrayal, a public humiliation, and a viral reckoning all wrapped in one. Fans turned their backs, sponsorships fell through, and even former collaborators started scrubbing his name from their projects. This wasn't just a PR problem. This was T.I.'s empire crumbling in slow motion. While the industry stayed quiet, the public made its choice loud and clear, and they chose Tiny Harris. From Instagram to TikTok, fan pages lit up with messages of support. They weren't just posting updates, they were creating memorials for the woman they believed had been dragged through the ugliest betrayal of 2025. One fan wrote, "Tiny stood by him through everything, and this is how he repaid her." TikTokers shared clips of old Family Hustle episodes, rewatching every interaction between T.I. and Tiny with new eyes. Eyes that saw the red flags they'd missed the first time. Memes exploded. Edits of Tiny rising like a phoenix. Audio overlays of her crying turned into battle anthems. Meanwhile, T.I. couldn't make a move online without getting buried in backlash. Every post was bombarded with comments like, "Where's the apology? You played yourself." Long live the Queen. The T.I. and Tiny drama had evolved into something bigger. It wasn't just about them anymore. It was about every woman who'd ever stayed silent after betrayal. And now, silence was no longer an option. Then came the bombshell that could ignite a second fire. Word spread that Tiny Harris was preparing a tell-all memoir, not just about T.I. and Shikina, but about everything. A close friend teased in a tweet, "It's deeper than you'll think." He did more than cheat. She kept secrets for years. Suddenly, the entire industry held its breath. Book publishers competed for the rights. Talk show hosts called her team daily, and fans flooded her Instagram with comments, begging for the truth. "Tell us everything. Your voice matters. Don't protect him anymore." Inside, sources claimed the book would cover hidden affairs, emotional abuse, financial manipulation, and the role NDAs played in keeping her quiet. This wasn't just revenge. It was Tiny reclaiming her story, on her terms, with receipts. When asked by a fan on Live if the memoir was real, she smiled softly and said, "Y'all will know soon enough. I'm done staying quiet." It was all the confirmation the internet needed, and for T.I., it was another countdown, not to vindication, but to total exposure. By now, the Harris empire wasn't just cracked, it was rubble. Streaming platforms quietly dropped him from featured playlists. Major events uninvited him. His publicist resigned. A once flawless image, the family man, the reformed hustler, the mogul, was now a cautionary tale. T.I., once untouchable, now sat alone in a mansion that echoed. No crew, no cameras, no one calling, and worst of all, no redemption arc in sight. The final blow came when a fan posted a viral side-by-side video. On the left, T.I. bragging on camera, "I built this from nothing." On the right, news clips announcing endorsement drops and court losses. The caption, "You built it, you broke it, and now you live in the ashes." It summed up everything, because this wasn't just a personal failure. It was a legacy erased in real time. One lie, one leak, one decision at a time. In the end, the Harris dynasty didn't just fall, it imploded. The DNA results weren't just scientific proof. They were emotional detonation, exposing years of deception, silence, and control. What followed wasn't healing, it was erasure. T.I.'s name, once chanted in arenas, was now mocked in meme threads. His empire? Reduced to broken contracts, frozen deals, and whispered regrets. Even Atlanta, the city that once crowned him King of the South, turned cold. Murals were defaced. Local artists distanced themselves. Clubs stopped playing his music. He had spent decades building an image, and lost it in months. Meanwhile, Tiny Harris became something no one expected. A symbol. Not of fame, not of marriage, but of resilience. She didn't beg for apologies. She didn't ask for sympathy. She stood up, spoke out, and let the truth destroy what needed to fall. Fans, especially women, saw themselves in her. The silence, the loyalty, the betrayal, and finally, the choice to walk away. In the story of T.I. and Tiny, people once thought he was the empire. But in the end, she was the one who held it together, and now she was the one rebuilding from the rubble. This wasn't just a cheating scandal. It was a public execution of trust, played out on the biggest stage imaginable. T.I.'s baby scandal didn't just break a marriage. It exposed a pattern. It showed how silence, power, and ego can build an empire, and how truth can burn it to the ground. Now fans are asking, can T.I. ever come back from this? Can a man who built his brand on family and loyalty survive being exposed for betrayal? And maybe more importantly, can Tiny Harris rise even higher without him? Because in the ruins of this story, she didn't just survive, she became the queen of a broken kingdom. And that makes you wonder, and is this really the end? Or is it the beginning of Tiny's own empire, one where she writes the rules? If you were watching this unfold in real time, drop a comment below. Were you Team Tiny from the start? Should she forgive or move on for good? Subscribe, like, and share if you think truth matters more than fame, because we've got more untold stories coming. And trust me, this one was just the beginning.